It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, January 13th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that still cannot believe what went down at the Wells Fargo Center Saturday night.
Yeah, it was a fun game.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here, as always, with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. You can keep the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com to get started. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Flyers, of course, face the Florida Panthers tonight. We're going to get to that. It's Monday. We'll have our nemesis of the week. But obviously, the biggest story of the weekend was the Flyers shutout of the Anaheim Ducks Saturday night, 6-0. And I don't know, pretty dull. Not much going on there, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, there was good energy in the building and everything, and it was probably loudest we've heard under the new regime. And yeah, all that's great. My big thing, and I understand why Torts didn't really want to talk about all the other stuff, is because he wants to see this level of effort from his team every game, not just against, a team like the Ducks who don't have good defense, but he wants to see that every game out of these guys. And so I understood where he was coming from for that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think as far as the hockey goes, they needed to play like that,
Yeah.
especially against a team like Anaheim,
Yes.
especially after how they played against Dallas. And I think all of that was the most important part of the night
Right.
for the Flyers. And Torts was right to focus on that for
He
sure.
was.
I think, and he talked pre-game about how he should have called a timeout at some point during the
Yep.
Stars
You
game
just
to
couldn't
kind of
hear.
reset.
Like, none of us could hear
Right.
in the press box either. Like, I don't blame the guy.
Right. So all that being said, I was at the arena. I sat in the stands for this one because I was celebrating my birthday with my family and wanted to be with them. So I was in the
Yeah,
stands,
sure.
not in the press box. And oh boy, if I had to pick a single game to be in the stands instead of the press box, that was it for sure. I think just being around it and really getting a feel for, what the fans were feeling. And, I think that, we've heard this from athletes on every single team in Philadelphia. All that Philadelphia sports fans want is for you to be there and to try your hardest and,
Mhm.
leave everything on the field for the city and
Yeah.
for their team. And that's it. That's all they want, right?
Mhm.
And so
I
when a
agree.
guy says, "I don't wanna be there," like, that is, like, the one thing that Philly sports fans are gonna take personally, and they showed it.
Yeah, there's no question they showed it. I mean, it's still a loaded message. There was more to that story, so I'm not gonna
Oh,
dunk on a
sure.
19 I'm not gonna dunk on a 19-year-old, but I understand how the fans reacted.
Right.
They have a right to feel that way, and yeah, I mean, they definitely showed up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think Philadelphia sports fans, have a right to
Yeah.
feel the way they do and to have behaved that way. I don't find anything wrong with it at all. But I also think Cutter Gauthier has made the decisions he made. He decided he want to be there. They figured out the Flyers did their job and found a trade for him that worked.
Yep.
And he has chosen to be quiet about his reasons, which is his right. And everybody just kind of has to live with it. We have to
Yeah.
live with not knowing why, and he has to live with some of the crowd, razzing him
Right.
as a result. And I think he's okay with it.
He
And
is. I mean, look, it's gonna be a couple of times a year. It's
mhm,
not gonna be a big deal in his life. But for fans, hey, they wanted to voice their displeasure. That's
yep,
their right to do that. They did that. They may do it to him the rest of his career. That's fine.
sure.
There was there was the whole taking away the sign thing. I understand what the Flyers were doing there. You don't want the place to get like incendiary from a fan perspective, and so it's like, they were trying to kind of calm down the temperature a little, and I get that.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, there is a line and you want to maintain it.
Right.
I do not think the officials maintained that line very
No,
well on
they
the
didn't.
ice,
No
though.
way.
Man, they had lost control of that
They
game
did.
in a lot of ways. I don't, to be fair, given everything, I don't know that they could have controlled it
Yeah,
in the
it's a
grand
hard
scheme
one.
of
That's a
things.
hard one. Yeah.
But I think, obviously, aside from the Cutter Gauthier of it all, Jamie Drysdale, a goal and an assist in this
Yeah, that
game.
was good for
How
him.
perfect.
Yeah,
How
that was good for
perfect.
him. I mean, he needed to really have a good game. He had a good game. So you could
Hmm.
sense that, post game I was in there and you could sense some relief there. So we'll see. We'll see if he can build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the other, I think, big thing is Matvei Michkov getting back on the board on the power play. Flyers got 2 power play goals in this game. He had one of them. And I think that you could obviously tell based on his reaction to the goal that it was extremely important to him. And Torts mentioned it after the game that for both Drysdale and Michkov, we'll see where it goes from here, but it was very good for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, the Mitchkov thing was a little weirder because he was not there for most of the game. Like you didn't
Right.
notice him at all, and he also got frustrated and got that penalty. So yes, he did end up with like a late goal there, but didn't have a great game. So that was kind of like a mixed bag.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because in previous shows, like last week, we talked about Ryan Paling being on that top line, centering
Yeah,
Tippett and Konecny, and that kind of limited Travis Konecny's game in a lot of ways because Konecny was sort of covering for him, right? So
correct.
in this game, they switched it up and had Frost on that top line and Paling with Lawton and Mitchkov. And I thought that in some ways, it affected Mitchkov's game the same way it
Probably.
affected Konechny's game
Yeah,
to some
I
degree.
I I agree. I mean, look, Ryan Paling's not having a great season. There were moments in that game where
I
he
mean, he
showed.
scored, but
Yeah, no, and he did. I mean, he had that moment, but there is something to be said about being a really good puck distributor, and that's not him. And
right.
so Frost is. So, they're just shuffling deck chairs with that one. And that's
Yeah.
the weird part about it. Now, should they keep Frost where he was? Yeah, they should. But again, the coach has his likes and dislikes, and wouldn't shock me if Frost is back off of there at some point. Not because of his own thing. He's going to still end up the season with like 17, 18 goals, and I'm not sure how many points. And no matter what, it's still going to not be good enough. Like that's just kind of where it's at with Morgan Frost. I hate to say it, but and I don't feel that way, but I just feel like the coach feels that way.
Obviously, time will tell, but Frost has goals in his last 2 games. We'll
Yeah,
see if that progresses. I think if he
yeah,
continues this, level of output for the next stretch, which is going to be a challenge, and we'll talk about, why in terms of the opponents and the division rivals that we're playing coming up. But I think that it'll be very important for Frost to be at kind of a point per game over the next little stretch.
yeah.
Assists are fine in my book, right?
Oh, mine too.
You know,
Yeah, points are points. You get them,
yeah,
it's good.
yeah, absolutely. The other thing that happened in this game was Ule Lixell finally got into the
He
lineup.
did.
We harping on this. He had not played since December 21st. And that is really hard to come into a game after not playing for that amount of time and doing all that traveling and being with the team, but not getting in games. And, I think that, and it was funny, I had some conversation with the people sitting near me about it because they were yelling about why is he on the power play. And so I
Oh
kind of put,
boy.
so I was like, listen,
Right.
I have seen him play. I understand where his skill set is. He can be extremely effective on the power
Yeah.
play. And then I was like, how effective has the Flyers power play been? Do you think
Right.
it will get worse with Lixell in? And they were
Right.
like, oh, I guess not. So,
Yeah.
but I did think he had like 2 or 3 really good plays, especially on the forecheck.
Yeah.
And to me, he earned another game. But again, I I doubt it'll happen, but I think he
I
earned it.
doubt it will happen too. I think you're right. I don't disagree. He had one really good look. He missed the net. Okay, it happens. He hasn't played. I think if they
Right.
did play him 2 or 3 in a row, they would start to get some results from him. But again, then it becomes a situation of like who you're sitting, and it's like
Right.
so that's why he may get edged out here.
Yep. Absolutely. Because, obviously they sat Joel Farabee
Right.
and didn't really miss him, gotta say. So that's going to be
No,
the
but
interesting
they're going to
decision,
need him for
right?
these next couple of games, and I have a feeling
Yeah.
if he doesn't get in against Florida, he'll probably get in against Columbus.
I would guess he'd come back against Columbus. That
Yeah.
that is my supposition. But again, we'll see if Lixell gets another shot or if they send him back to Lehigh Valley. I think, you know,
At
I
this point,
we
I would send
certainly
him back only because it's like he's only played one game. Lehigh
right.
Valley desperately needs him. And if you want to have somebody with you, just sort of like to have him there, then just call up somebody else. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel that if you're not going to play him, send him back. But if you are going to give him a shot, give him a real shot.
Right.
There was a lot more to this game,
For
including,
sure.
I think, shot selection. We got to talk about Sam Ersson, and we'll get to that, plus preview the game tonight against Florida coming up next.
From big upsets to game winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. We're ahead of the game here, so I'm going to just say bet the Baltimore Ravens, no matter who they play, on the money line. Just visit fanduel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
On tomorrow's show, we are going to recap the game against the Florida Panthers. We're going to talk Columbus Blue Jackets. We've got Phantoms Tuesday, and we're going to see if we were right about the quarter century team
Ah,
for the Flyers, which is coming out officially today. Plus, we're going to answer your mailbag questions on Wednesday. So get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. So I want to talk shot selection here because I think we saw pretty early in that game that Gibson was very shaky and he even
yes,
kind of got hurt. But the Ducks had a back to back they played again Sunday. So that's why he
they
stayed
left him
in
in. Yeah.
for the rest of the game. And, you look at the heat map and everything, tons of shots. And that's where the goals were kind of net front. And I thought the Flyers did a really good job of reading that and kind of going for that as the game progressed.
They did. I do think you're right that I think that play that was by the backboards is where he got hurt.
Yeah.
I remember the ref went over and looked at him, and at first we didn't even kind of notice what happened, and then when they showed the replay, you saw it. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, when there's blood in the water, that's what you do. I mean, that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, and then at the other end of the ice, Sam Ersson, I thought it was a really good game for him in several ways. Number one, obviously, it's always good to get a shutout, right?
Right.
22 shots on goal, which isn't a
It's
lot,
not
and
a
he
lot.
had he had huge stretches of time without seeing anything, but
Yeah.
then, like, would make some really solid saves, like, in smart reads and really great positioning, and I just thought all around, given everything in the up and down in terms of, being quiet versus seeing action, he just did such a good job managing that game.
He did, but I want to see the next few. This one I
Mhm.
felt was kind of easy. A shutout's a shutout, but I felt like this one was kind of easy. Believe it or not, it wouldn't shock me if they play him on a back to back. But I wouldn't do it at this point in time because of the injuries. But it wouldn't shock me if they did, if he says he's okay. But we'll see how they play that. But next game, let me see how he does.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be in against Florida, and they'll put
Yes,
Fedotov in against
most
Columbus,
likely.
but I think that's what we're looking at here. I also want to talk about Travis Konecny because obviously 4 assists in this game. All
Yeah,
of them were tremendous
great
dynamic
plays.
plays.
Yes.
And I just like, and he obviously got into it with Gauthier. He got into it with a bunch of people. He was
Yeah.
just, I think, of anybody on that team. And you can talk about Drysdale and all the cheers he was getting. And we know he's not as good as Cutter Gauthier in the grand scheme of things. But I feel like Travis Konecny fed off the energy in
He
the
did.
building in the most productive way of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, on that other line, he was trying to do those same things and didn't get
Mhm.
rewarded for it. And this time he got rewarded every time
Yep.
for it. So it's kind of
Yep.
like the hockey gods were smiling on him a bit with that. And they were just great plays. Some of these feeds were cross ice feeds, really
Mhm.
difficult, smart plays. So yeah, let's see. I mean, if he starts bringing that, that could really help him in some of these games coming up.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why, there's some other guys. Obviously, Bristow, I
Yeah,
thought had a
big
really great
defensive game.
game
Yeah, yeah,
for him, but just stood out multiple times to me throughout the
yeah.
game in terms of, again, his decision making, just getting back when he needed to effectively, even though he isn't that fast. So I just thought he was really, really smart.
There is a worry here though with Nick Seeler because he was
Mm,
doubled over on the bench, and then when he got checked into the bench, almost not the bench, but like he kind of got bent over there. I felt like he might have something with his ribs or something because he was definitely aggravated again. He played, but he is really banged up. Like
right.
I expect him to play next game, but Florida may look to push him because he definitely was hurting in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is definitely something to keep an eye on and see if they make adjustments on the blue line
Yeah.
relative to that and try to shelter him or give him slightly less
Or
minutes.
give him a day off and put Eric Johnson in.
Yeah, which Torts talked about that Johnson knows he's not playing unless there's an injury
Right,
that requires it last minute and they can't do a call up because he even said call ups are going to leapfrog Johnson to
right.
get it.
Well, I'm glad
So,
he said that. That's fair.
yeah, yeah. All right, so the Florida Panthers tonight. This is the last of the 3 games against them, thank God, because the Panthers won the first 2 of them. One of them was in November, where the Panthers won 4-3, and then, the nightmare fuel that was the December 5th game, losing 7-5,
Yeah.
where the, Panthers blew a 3-goal lead. The Flyers came back into it and then just,
Yeah,
like,
that was wild.
went
That
off
game
the
was
wa
wild.
went off the rails completely and
Yeah.
lost anyway. So hopefully we can end on a high note against the Florida Panthers, carry some momentum over from this Ducks game here. But the Panthers do have a lot to play for right now, given their position right now, because they are
Yeah.
behind the Maple Leafs. They're 3 points behind them, but have a game in hand. And so they're knocking on the doorstep of getting back to the top of the division. And I think that that's where they just have a huge motivation here.
Yeah, they definitely have a huge motivation. We also have to remember in that last game, Evan Rodriguez was just killing them.
Oh my
Like
God.
he was like that was maybe the best game I've ever seen the guy play. I don't think he'll be able to recreate that, but Sam Reinhart also was hot in that game. And
Well,
go ahead.
you say that. And in their game Saturday afternoon, they lost in overtime to the Bruins. And who scored the goals for the Panthers in that game? Evan Rodriguez and Sam Reinhart. So,
Well, Reinhart will
yeah,
definitely, I wasn't going
yeah,
to say he can't recreate it. He can. If Rodriguez does, that's a little worrisome because they are so deep.
yeah, yeah. I think, the only question that was outstanding after the Panthers played the Bruins. I think we've gotten a clearer picture on Aaron Ekblad is going to be out and is not coming on the road trip
Okay,
north. So that is like a huge factor for the Panthers
sure.
blue line.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, their blue line's still pretty good, and that just means Forsling will play a million minutes. That's all.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, obviously not good for Ekblad and we don't wish injury on anybody, but
No, no,
it
no,
is
no.
it is something that the Flyers can
I mean, it's
capitalize on.
noteworthy. I did
Yeah.
also want to point this out accidentally while I was looking at a story, writing a story. I looked at which player had the most shifts in the NHL, and it's Travis Sanheim. That was as of a
Mhm.
couple days ago. The most.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, he's, I'm sure, gonna get a ton of ice time
Oh
in this
yeah.
game. You look at, goals for and against per 60 for the Panthers, and they're in much better shape than the Flyers are on that.
Yeah.
But You probably didn't need to look up the stat to know that.
No, no.
But the Panthers have a much better penalty kill right now. They are sixth in the NHL in the power play. But I think obviously that's why you play the games, because the Panthers have been a little bit uneven this season. They're not as
Sure.
dominant as they were. I think they're better now than they were when the
Seems that way.
Flyers faced them earlier. But still, I think, their goal differential, I think it's only 9 right now. And it's a -1 at 5-on-5 as of Saturday before the Bruins game. So, there's wiggle room here with this team.
There is wiggle room. I feel like the biggest issue for this one is throw out all the stats and just say that you can't let these guys live in the
No.
crease. If they get in the
Yeah.
crease too much, then it's going to be another one of these 7-5 games, because they're going to keep testing the crease. Kachuk's going to keep testing it. Reinhart will test it down low. All these guys are going to test it down low, and they have some size, so this is going to be a big burden on the Flyers defense.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think the intensity from the Ducks game has to carry through,
Correct.
because they took it to the Ducks
Yes.
physically
Oh yeah.
in
Yeah, their
that game. And I
forechecking stuff
think,
was good.
yeah, absolutely. So I think if they can kind of go into this game with the same energy that they had against the Ducks, maybe just kind of recall they don't want to play like they played against Dallas again, right? And
Yeah.
do that again, I think the Flyers have a shot to win this game.
Yeah, everybody always has a shot. I think it's a little remote for this one. I think this one, sometimes in sports, when teams get very high and then they go and they play an opponent like this, it could be a problem. And so we'll see. That's sometimes it's hard. It's one of those mental things. And so we'll see how
Yeah.
that part of it goes.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, it is Monday, so we will have our nemesis of the week, and we're going to talk about this busy week ahead as well, because there's a lot of tough games coming up for the Flyers, and they have to be ready. We'll get into all of that coming up next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That has definitely happened to me. And I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It was like having a personal assistant for my finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features, including that tracker to help cancel those services you no longer use. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. Rocketmoney.com/locked on. Okay, Russ. So obviously we have that game against Florida tonight. They go to Columbus tomorrow night. So
Who's been
big
very
back to
good
back.
this year.
Yeah, with travel, Columbus is much better, and they've been winning solidly um, over the past several weeks,
Yeah.
and are really strong candidates for one of those wild card spots right now. And then later in the week, we see the New York Islanders, who I think are frustrating because you never know what team is going to show up.
So true.
They
Even Patrick
they
Waugh feels that way.
Yeah, it's like they could shut a team out 4-0 and then the next game, like, lose a 1-0 game. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have no clue
No clue.
what the Islanders are. And then, of course, you have the Devils
Devils are
next
tough, man.
weekend. Yeah, they are real tough, and I think they have finally come through this season on the promise
Yeah.
that they've had
In
for the
their
last.
building, so that makes it a little tougher too.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it's an afternoon game. It's in New Jersey,
Yeah, yeah.
like a real tough game. And then plus, we've got other in division games next week as well. And so this is like the make it or break it couple of weeks. Like these few weeks leading up to Four Nations, I think are gonna determine the Philadelphia Flyers season.
Yeah, I think so. I think it will definitely tell the story.
It's going to be really important for this team to keep it together and, play with that structure that Torts talks about, right?
Yeah.
All right. So for our nemesis of the week, last week I talked about the World Juniors and having to wait another year for them because, um, I love it so much, and I just like these big international tournaments, and coincidentally, it was my birthday yesterday, so now I got to wait a whole other year for my birthday, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my nemesis partially this week. Last week you talked about room service at hotels closing early in relation to your travel to Ottawa for World Juniors, and I get that, man. You get back to the hotel and you're just starving because you've been out and
Yes.
about, like doing
Yeah,
things,
you're
and
working
all
all
you
day.
want, yeah, yeah, and you just want a snack and you cannot get, like, I just want some fries, man.
Yeah.
And
Something.
like you need something and you can't get it. But what is your nemesis this week?
Well, it's not William Nylander's purple suit, but it should be in the Four Nations commercial. It's more like lilac. It's more. It's not even purple. My nemesis is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. And here, and
Very
here's,
good.
and here's why. Uh, they got everybody up in arms for the last 2 or 3 years. Flyers, Comcast, we're leaving. We don't like what's going on here. We want our own place. So they get everybody all hot and bothered about it. They get the town, the city on board with it, and the city goes,
No,
finally.
first they threatened to move to New
I know,
Jersey,
but forget
and
that. That
when
was
that doesn't work,
baseless.
then they go back to
I
the
know.
market.
That was a baseless
Op
thing, though. But they
I
got
know.
the city to approve the Market Street thing, right? And
Mhm.
I didn't want that to happen because I didn't want to see Chinatown get obliterated.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, like out of the blue, it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to stay. And now, of course, the rumor is they might build a new arena with the
Mhm.
Flyers. And I,
50-50, yeah.
I would just say I'd worry about that Flyers. I don't know how good of a partner the 76ers will actually be, because all I heard was a lot of kvetching for the last 3 years out of the 76ers. So right now they're kind of my nemesis.
Yeah, I get that. Like the way that I mean, in some ways it's kind of impressive the way that they like led Philly City Council by a leash and
Right.
like completely destroyed their credibility in this
Yeah. And
entire
I'm sure they're not
process.
thrilled today either.
No, no, it's real bad. I think, it's cool that the basketball team and the hockey team share a venue. I think,
Hmm.
the
Yeah, I
changeover
was
dates
never
are
against
neat.
that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think, having a building, like if you're going to build a building like that, it better be occupied and not just sit there,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And so that's where I think it just has always made sense for the two teams to share a venue. The South Philly Stadium complex has always made sense to me because there's easy access, whether it's public transit, whether you're coming from Pennsylvania side, from New Jersey side, from Delaware, it's easy to get to for everybody. And there's plenty of parking. And
Yeah,
I
we'll just see
just
the
can't
list of
imagine.
demands from the Sixers in this
Right.
build and how it goes. I'd be
Right.
very curious how that goes.
Yeah, I know. It's like the Sixers are the boy who cried wolf, and they're gonna pull the rug out from underneath somebody at some
Yeah,
point in this
yeah,
process, and Comcast is gonna be like, "That's cute,"
yeah.
and go from there. So, I don't know. Yeah. I think, we're talking about this a little bit at length, and it's mostly a Sixers thing, but it does affect the
It
Flyers,
affects the
right?
Flyers, absolutely. It's gonna probably mean a new building even after the upgrades, and that's who knows when
That
that's gonna happen. And yeah, but it will
right.
affect them at some point.
Yeah, and that's I think, they've put so much into the upgrades to Wells Fargo that, I would be reticent to spend a ton of money on a new building sooner rather than later. So maybe the current lease gets extended for another 5-10 years, and then
Right,
that's when
right.
they schedule the building for 20 years from
Yeah, like they
15,
just
20 years
remodeled
from
the
now.
kitchen. You're gonna remodel it again, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep. Or like or knock it down,
right, or
you
knock it
know?
down. That's a better way of saying it. Yes.
Because they're gonna have to build the new building just like they did with the Spectrum and
Right.
they're gonna have to
Yep,
build the new
same thing.
building in the parking lot and then
Yep,
knock the old one down. That's how it
yep.
works down there. So, I think, to be continued as far as the Flyers go, but maybe there's opportunities to build some extra facilities and, maybe get some women's sports teams in the area. That might be nice. But,
Upgraded
we'll see.
elevators, perhaps.
Maybe, maybe. All right. That will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to talk Flyers Panthers. We're going to talk Columbus Blue Jackets and check in with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know at Locked On Flyers on any of our socials. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.